firmly believe that if we had a beach renourishment 2 years ago when we were supposed to, if the Army Corps of Engineers did not enact this perpetual easement agreement, not only would we have seen significantly less damage across all neighboring towns to my town included, I also don't think people would have died. Two towns that are neighbors to each other, only separated by a small channel Blinds Pass. One town was completely destroyed, the other fairly untouched. Actually, every single town north of Blinds Pass took a beating. Yet this one town, less than a mile away, was comparatively untouched. How is this possible? Swell direction, hurricane pathing, wind direction? All of those things of course play a role. But no, the answer is much more complicated than I ever could have anticipated. It started by me planning to go film the south end of Pinellas County after I filmed this video. I realized it had been 100 days since Helene, and that kind of blew my mind. Plus, the number one question everyone and their mother has been asking me every single time that I see somebody that I haven't seen since the storms is, how are things going after the hurricanes? I figured that this video was at least a good way for me to minimize that question being asked in my day-to-day life, because I feel as though I've just been explaining myself over and over again. Which is fine, because people are just asking because they care. But I am kind of tired of talking about it, so I made that video. Now, there's a great number of reasons why people upload YouTube videos. Some people do it to become famous. Some people do it to become rich. People do it for pride, for education, for excitement, for inspiration. Now, during my skate, after going to St. Pete Beach, it was as if a light bulb went off in my head after seeing the difference between the two towns. I immediately thought to myself, people need to hear about this and need to see what I'm seeing. Here's where the first can of worms are open.
Following Hurricane Idalia, severely eroded beaches lost even more sand, leaving many access points closed. And tonight, 10 Tampa Bay's Malik Rankin has a new update on where Pinellas County's beach renourishment projects stand and what this means for property owners.
Beach renourishment projects in Pinellas County have been on pause because of perpetual property easements. Today, the Army Corps of Engineers made their stance clear. Without 100% compliance, no sand will be pumped onto Pinellas County shores.
But at this time, the Corps is not going to be able to do any work on any of these three segments until we can get them policy compliant with those perpetual storm damage easements.
That means every homeowner in Sand Key, Long Key, and Treasure Island zoned areas has to sign over access to a portion of their property before beach renourishment can begin.
Let's define the public access piece, because property owners really don't want to see, they purchased their home, I get it.
Would you consider altering the language on that easement to get more people on board with signing?
I think what I can say is that I will take the information up and the feedback that we heard today and talk to leadership throughout the Army Corps of Engineers and for consideration.
This meeting had the Indian Shores Municipal Building beyond capacity, with many residents and local officials wanting answers.
Because it states in this policy that the Corps should not have rigid policies that affect the people, the environment, and the economy. And I'm interpreting this as very rigid, given that these have been waived before.
And so I appreciate everybody listening through.
Colonel James Booth explained what these easements do, saying you don't lose property rights when you sign.
These easements give us access to property. The federal government does not take property, we just access to the property.
Those refusing to give the Army Corps access to their land say the language needs to change.
Had it been written a little differently, I would have signed gladly and probably brought you refreshments out while you're working. But when you tell me in perpetuity and everyone, public access, honey, I have enough trouble keeping public off my property already.
In this meeting, the Army Corps says it's unlikely they change their policy on requiring easements. The Army Corps clarified a few things here today. When a homeowner signs an easement, they're signing over a portion of their property rights to the county, not the Army Corps. And the reason these easements are perpetual, according to the Army Corps, is so that if a storm comes in and devastates our beaches, they're able to come in with those easements already in place, having access to this land to renourish the area.
It's so that if a storm comes in and devastates our beaches, they're able to come in with those easements already in place, having access to this land to renourish the area.
Treasure
Island saw some serious flooding from Hurricane Idalia, and Sunset Beach was battered.
We have this dune system that was a 40-year established dune system that was wiped out by the storm surge.
Idalia washed away the sand dunes. Now, Treasure Island Commissioner Beth Wetzel says Pinellas County has initiated an emergency beach dune restoration project for Sunset Beach.
Now, the next step will be to add vegetation once the sand has been dumped into Sunset Beach.
Josh, and the Army Corps needs all beach owners 100% to sign an easement that allows the Army Corps access to the beaches. However, some property owners, like the owner of these beachfront villas behind us, say that they won't sign right now.
We'll hold to the policy that we need 100% of the real estate access so that we can move forward with the projects.
And that disappoints some locals.
You can't get 10 people, 100% of 10 people to agree what time the sun rose today.
Neighbors said,
bringing back the beach. Pinellas County is planning a $36 million project to renourish 9 miles of beaches from Sand Key all the way to Reddington. But there's a problem. More than half of the property owners along that 9-mile stretch want no part of rebuilding their beaches, and that's creating some real headaches for Pinellas County as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. And you paid for that, and that's why Mark is on it tonight.
Coastal engineers insist without renourishment, Suncoast beaches can disappear, and they have before and after pictures to prove it. But some beachfront owners want no part of the $36 million project now planned from Sand Key to Reddington.
Millions of dollars worth of sand in front of your condominium to protect it, and you don't want it.
That's correct. They're taking over our property.
Gonzalez worries the easement would allow the government to build protective dunes that would ruin his beachfront view.
None of these people are going to sign. We don't need to. We're not going to give our rights away.
Yes, you heard that correctly. If 100% of beachfront property residents do not sign this new easement agreement, dredging will not happen. Nobody gets sand, and like that dude said, you can't get 100% of 10 people to agree what time the sun came up today. Now, why is this? I found this online. I will link it in the description with the rest of my sources if you want to do your own research. As you can see, not even close. But you can see what properties voted no and which ones voted yes. Not that it really matters. We're going to get into that, though. We had roughly half of all of the signatures needed. It doesn't take a genius to know that this is a stalemate and that people aren't going to sign this. So what can we even do at this point? Well, the city lined up trucks gathering ancient sand from the middle of Florida back when Florida was a sandbar and a reef. If you're new to this channel, you might not know that Florida has been underwater several times. I know this for a fact because we've personally excavated thousands of shark's teeth from the middle of the state of Florida. If you want to check out those videos, there's a playlist on the channel. And yes, more are coming soon, I promise. I'm working on one right now.
Kelly Hammer-Levy is the County Public Works Director. She tells me the Army Corps of Engineers isn't budging on a new requirement for this project to move forward: perpetual property easements.
So they've been reliant on a 1986 law. But that 1986 law does not require perpetual public access easements, but it's not in there. And they have, acknowledged that this is a policy, it's not the law.
A policy they're enforcing. All of these renourishment projects are connected. The Public Works Director tells me without 100% of the easement signed, they won't move forward. Up the coast on Sunset Beach, it's 2 years past due for more sand.
We worry about a storm or something happen. We don't know what's going to happen next. There's something to do protection for everybody, not just for me, for people living in here.
Now the county is forced to look at other options. Officials are meeting with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection later this week
to discuss an interim project on Sunset Beach because it is so eroded.
These projects require state and federal approval. It takes time that may run out as we approach peak hurricane season. In Pinellas County, Malik Rankin, 10 Tampa Bay.
The Army Corps of Engineers answers to Congress. They have to deliver a report on the progress of this project by the end of the year. County officials are hopeful that report will put this issue on front of an audience that can help move renourishment forward.
This is why our local representatives like Anna Paulina Luna are writing letters to the Corps demanding answers.
This new agreement that is being proposed is a perpetual agreement, meaning forever and never changing. It allows government access to private property via this easement while the dredging operation is underway. The problem is not only that, it gives perpetual public access for people to use private property as an easement. This is where the verbiage becomes absolutely ridiculous, and you can safely assume after reading this that there's absolutely no chance that we're going to get 100% of beachfront property owners to sign this. Perpetual rights to the government and the public, it's just a guarantee that at least one person isn't going to sign, which makes it so that we will never have the beach renourished from Sand Key all the way down to, I think, St. Pete Beach. I found a news article that made me laugh, where the newscaster said this.
With all of the patchwork permissions, the Army Corps will have to skip about 1.2 miles of beaches from Sand Key all the way down to Reddington Shores when they begin filling in nearly 1 million cubic yards of sand to protect against normal erosion and major storms at the end of this year.
This is untrue. 1.2 miles, he was only like 13 miles off. Now guys, I'm not an expert in water management. I'm not hired by any corporations. I just live here. If you look at Pinellas County and the Barrier Islands, you will notice some stuff about it. For one, the distance between the two inlets is huge. Pinellas County is one of the most densely populated counties on the entire planet. Do you understand? Up there with Los Angeles, up there with New York. Why is everyone here in Pinellas? For the beaches. What happens if there is no beach? Well, there's going to be a whole number of problems if they don't renourish the beaches. What happened in Helene will not only happen again, it will continue to get worse. The less defense we have against the ocean, the more water will make it across Gulf Boulevard and the more houses will get flooded. It's as if they're doing this so that all the single-story houses will be destroyed so that we have to enter like a stilted home era. I don't know if insurance is responsible. I honestly don't know who's responsible at this point. But if you look at the towns that did not have enough sand, this has been something that we talked about for a very, very long time leading up to this hurricane season. I went and stood in front of the City Council of Indian Rocks Beach 2 years ago and pleaded that they do whatever they can to get the beach renourishment done. As I said, when the Army Corps of Engineers came and dumped their truckloads of sand, we all kind of just laughed because we're like, this is not going to help at all. But given this is something that I have dug deep into in the past, with beach closure laws, with fences, with private property rights that I've dug into in the past, what many people don't know and consider is that the Barrier Islands have a fair amount of infrastructure. We've been combating nature since settling on these barrier islands. We've installed seawalls. Back in the 80s, we had a hurricane that stripped the entire beach of all of its sand to where the water was just hitting the seawalls. There was no beach whatsoever. This is obviously a problem because if there's no sand to keep the waves' power from entering people's backyards, the waves are just simply going to break into people's backyards. And I said this to the city council. I stood in front of them and I let them know that we need defense against the ocean. A lot of people say sand won't stop water. You have no idea how the ocean works. Yes, it absolutely will. Of course, only to a certain point. But this is when things get interesting. So the Army Corps of Engineers are seeking perpetual access, needing 100% of signatures. They've interviewed several Army Corps of Engineer representatives, and they say shit like this.
No work can happen. The Colonel's reasoning.
If you can imagine a pot that you expect to hold water, you don't want that pot to have holes in the bottom of it.
What? What does that even mean? Excuse me? Can I help you? You're not making any sense at all. I feel like this is like that scene from Fun with Dick and Jane where they make Jim Carrey think he's doing something noble and getting a promotion when in reality he's just a pawn.
Globodyne is completely transparent, and we'd be more than willing to share any and all documentation.
If you can imagine a pot that you expect to hold water, you don't want that pot to have holes in the bottom of it.
I also saw the Reddington mayor say this.
Without the dunes, the sand or the water that comes over the sand has nothing to hit before it goes over the seawall.
Back in April, Hendrickson showed me the poor condition of the dunes.
And if we can get our residents who live on the west side of Gulf Boulevard to sign these easements, the county will step in and they'll do a renourishment project for us.
Bro, honestly, at this point, I'm proud of her for knowing which way west is.
I thought you said west.
Are we seeing the same thing here? Now, I don't know anything, but from what I've heard, this lady's corrupt. and just not a good elect for the town. She actually forced myself and my friends to remove one of the supply drops after the hurricane from one of the parks in Reddington. She said if it's not official, if it's not with FEMA, if we're not with the state or the government, we can't give people supplies, which I think is just a fucking joke. It's almost as much of a joke as her saying, if everyone would just sign. That is so clearly not the problem. She's so obviously a puppet that it kind of hurts my soul. It does. It actually does. It's just upsetting. That is not the problem. I don't understand why we were able to dredge 6 times over the last 30 years. But now all of a sudden we cannot dredge. There's no possible way for us to put sand onto the beaches without getting 100% of people to sign this perpetual agreement. Let's just consider what areas are most likely to flood. Probably the ones that have small intercoastals, without places for the water to drain. Oh, like exactly like the stretch of beach where they decided that dredging wasn't going to take place. That makes perfect sense. It actually makes no sense at all, and it makes it seem intentional, because from Clearwater Beach to Johns Pass, 15 miles between inlets and outlets for water to flow. North of Clearwater Beach, there's like 5 more, okay? South of Johns Pass, there's like 5 more every 5 miles leading to Tampa Bay. So it's painfully obvious that the one section of beach where they decided we needed 100% of people to sign these perpetual agreements, the place that clearly needs the sand the most, they made it impossible for us to get sand, which means the neighborhood is going to go underwater again. Let me just explain something else to you too, okay? My town and the neighboring towns have high ground and have low ground. The high ground is typically either the road, Gulf Boulevard, or the houses in between the road and the ocean. Okay, are you following me? There is an apex. There is a peak to the beach. If there's not sand to stop the waves' power from making it over the peak of the beach, the water has nowhere to go and the neighborhoods flood. I firmly believe that if we had a beach renourishment 2 years ago when we were supposed to, if the Army Corps of Engineers did not enact this perpetual easement agreement, not only would we have seen significantly less damage across all neighboring towns to my town included, I also don't think people would have died. And I firmly believe that if we simply had dredging done when we were scheduled to, we could have saved a lot of people's lives. And it's that simple to me. Obviously, there are some adverse effects to dredging, like it has some effects on the ecosystem and on the environment, but everything that I've heard about, like it kills coquinas and it kills sand fleas and whiting, those are all still outside my house, okay? They bounce back. If we're going to continue to live on these barrier islands and on these beach towns, the beach towns that are the heart and soul of Pinellas County, that are the only reason that this is one of the most densely populated counties on the entire planet, I do believe we're going to enter a fairly dark era for Pinellas County and for Pinellas County's beaches, because I'm not sure what they plan on doing. I don't think that they have a plan. Their last plan failed miserably. All the sand that they packed out on the beaches went straight into everyone's backyards, into their pools, into my dad's living room. I do not think that would have happened, or even close, if we simply would have dredged the beaches when we were supposed to. It doesn't take a genius to see that these areas are more prone to flooding. At the end of the day, after watching hundreds of hurricanes, I'm realizing that NHC surge maps don't really matter. What matters is how much defense and shallow water we have between our neighborhood and the waves. To be fair, there's pretty simple solutions here in my opinion. Breakwaters, jetties, basically a barricade of rocks. Stack them all on the sandbar, causing the waves to break and lose power. I really feel as though if we just added sand, built jetties, and prepared for the hurricanes just a little bit, we would have been fine. We can send billions and billions and billions of dollars all over the place, but we can't get some rocks to put outside of our house, one of the most densely populated counties on the entire planet. Like, let us do it ourselves. I'll go buy rocks. I know it's a lot, but like it's only 14 miles. It's only 14 miles, and we could have saved a dozen lives and literally thousands of people's homes. We know that there's a lot more details and aspects that go into hurricanes flooding. Like, obviously, tides were favorable during Helene. We might have not had such a serious surge if the tide wasn't a peak high tide during the peak storm surge. Something to note is that my dad's house was not underwater. It was battered by waves. My dad said he stayed outside all night on the balcony of the condo behind his house, watching the water flood through the beach access and flood to the side of the house like a river. There was never, ever standing water inside my dad's house. There was only waves pushing through it and pushing around it. All we really need to do is provide some level of defense and we'll be fine. Or we can just continue to do nothing, like we have been until the next hurricane season when we flood even worse. The solution is simple. I'm just trying to make you guys aware of the logistics of this whole thing. While 14 miles of beach is a long stretch, considering how many people live here and how many resources our government has and how many people rely on the beach and on tourism to make a living, I don't see this as being a problem for the government to fix. It's just like it's a joke. I would like to know what they plan on doing. I would like to hear your guys' comments on this. I saw a few recent news articles regarding this problem, but none of them are even worth mentioning. It just seems like the news articles I watched were just regurgitated bullshit from the same exact thing that they covered 8 months ago with no new solutions whatsoever, besides the solution of having 100% of people sign an easement. I just want you guys to know that this is not something that I'm just going to be making one video about. I will be following up with another video. I plan on attending more city council meetings. I honestly would like to run for office with some of my friends. Like, if I were the mayor, would I even be able to do anything? I sure would at least like to find out. You guys think that would be entertaining content, right? Anyways, it is a stalemate. It's a dirty, dirty stalemate by some absolute kook clowns in Jacksonville that call themselves the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm not sure if somebody else is paying them off or what's actually happening. If you want to try calling them or emailing them, here's all their info. There's links in the description. I will have all of my sources in the description if you guys want to look into what I've been looking into. These are the same people that thought that drying the Everglades was a good idea, right? They built a giant border around Lake Okeechobee, restricting the water flow. This is a serious problem, one, because we're destroying one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on the entire planet, which is the Everglades in Florida, by drying it out. Another thing is that water is not supposed to mix with the ocean until it has been cleaned by the river of grass. The Everglades has a way of filtering out all the bad stuff and algae that grows in fresh water. Not to mention all the poison that's been dumped in there from phosphate mining and from big sugar runoff. It all adds up. It's all bad. The same people that restricted the flow of water from South Florida and are just shooting toxic algae bloom water straight out into the oceans, killing millions and millions and millions of fish and just destroying entire ecosystems, are the ones that are in charge of keeping our beach town safe. They're not. They've proven themselves to be incredibly incompetent in the past. Some of the things going on with Florida's environment are so sickening, it just makes me want to throw up. If you think dredging is a problem and you're going to advocate against dredging, shut the f*** up and go look into phosphate mining in Florida if you want to bitch about something that's destroying the environment. Remember the biggest fish kill in the history of Florida? That's why. It's not because of dredging. I've never seen them dredge and then all of a sudden there's millions of dead fish all over the beach. It just doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's not gonna happen. We need to stop pretending. I've opened a can of worms. I'm well aware of that. But this is something I find to be incredibly important, and I think that's something that you guys need to become educated on. It's all incompetence at the end of the day. Phosphate mining, big sugar runoff, water restricted from Lake Okeechobee. It's all just deeply concerning and it makes my stomach hurt. I'm just one person with an opinion. I just really wanted to be on the forefront of educating people on this topic because I do believe that we will be reaching a breaking point soon. I just hope we can do something before more irreversible damage is done and before Pinellas County becomes a barren, toxic wasteland where no one wants to live. Everybody's like, oh, you're just making this video so that you can protect your investments. I pay rent, motherfucker. I don't own property here. My dad does, which is, you know, my childhood home. Like, he worked his ass off to have that house. He had payphones and washing machines, grinded for years to be able to live there and to be able to raise his kids there. So I'd like you to put a little bit of respect on the name. Understand that we are here for the people, for the neighborhood, for everyone that lives in Florida. Like I said, I'm just one dude one guy in his house trying to do the right thing and use my social media to be responsible. Until episode 2, that's about all I have for now. I know it was a deep dive, but this is incredibly important stuff. And I think that everyone should care about this if they live on planet Earth, because stuff like this shouldn't be able to happen. And it's disgusting and it makes me sick. And I don't really know what to do. I'm going to read all your guys' comments so that we can tackle this problem together. And until next time, like the video, support the dream, really help this video go viral. It's never been more important that a video goes viral if you don't want to see my town get destroyed again. And if you don't want to see people lose their lives because our elected officials are incompetent. Wish I had a happy ending here, but we are just scraping the surface.